Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jed Matthew Ramos with Standing Rock Update. I'm not in North Dakota. I'm safe and sound in Ohio. Ochedi Sakowin went down today. It's a very sad day for me. I made it was my home for a short while, and I met so many great people out there, and we fought the good fight together. When I originally started to go out there to make a documentary and to just to show what was really going on, because there was so much misinformation going on, I originally intended it to be a documentary showing both sides of the dispute. Once I got down there, things changed quite a bit. I didn't have a major press pass. I didn't work for a major paper. I didn't work for the NBCs or the CBSs or the Fox Newses. It was a little rough getting any kind of respect from that side whatsoever. You find out pretty quick that they want to be very careful on what they're letting out there. It's not like the tribal side, where you're guests and you can share whatever. These guys want to put out a lot of propaganda. But once I got rubber bullets shot at me and got tear gassed, yeah, I heard one journalist say that you get some skin in the game, and it's true. It definitely turned from an unbiased view to just an informed, this is what's really happening. Not to say that what I'm giving you is bullshit, because it isn't. This is as unbiased as I can be after being tear gassed and shot at. I met some great people, and not just for the movement's sake, but for the fact that man, I really touched my spiritual side out there. The great creator and I have never ever really seen eye to eye. Once I was out there and participated in the ceremony and just seen that way of life, things really changed for me, and I'm forever changed. Especially with some of the stuff that I had to deal with once I got back home, some crazy stuff going on in my life. I don't know if I would have gotten through it, and it's kind of, maybe there is a great plan, because without being spiritual centered for the first time in my life, I don't know if I would be able to deal with some of the stuff that I've had to deal with. And the gift of spirituality that I received from being out there is a gift that I could never pay back. And so Camp Ochedi Sakowin went down today. They were evicted. I'm also hearing reports that Rosebud was also evicted, or at least partially evicted. I cannot confirm or deny that at this time, but it looks like if they haven't been, they will be shortly, and so will the Sacred Stone Camp. This is from the council itself that gave permission, because federal agents have to have Indian approval to go onto the reservation. It turns out that roughly 30 days ago, the chairman, David Archambault, along with the rest of the tribal council, met, and they originally were talking about moving the camps off the floodplains for environmental reasons, because Ochedi Sakowin especially is right on the floodplain, and in the spring the water's gonna rise, and with all the camps there, all that debris in the water and such. As they were meeting peoples from the Cannonball community, the town that the camps are located very closely around, came and asked that people just be asked to be sent home, because of the strain on the community and just interference with the community itself, like schooling and such. The chairman felt that there wasn't really an alternative but to go with the wishes of the Cannonball community. That's why these camps are being evicted, and I don't agree with it, but I have to respect that. I have to respect that verdict. It's their community, and if we do not respect what they say and what they ask of us, then are we any better than the federal government and these corporations that are trying to put this pipeline through? It is what it is, folks. And though I don't agree with it, I do understand their strain on their community. It's just to me, it's a heartbreaker because the protests have raised so much awareness, and without this movement that began with some youths, just making camp and turning into this thing, like over 7,000 people have moved into these camps. So these evictions are no small matter. When I was out there, because it was Indian summer, no pun intended. It was November when I was out there, but it was nice. During the day, it was cold as hell at night. Got on to freezing at night, but during the day, it was in the 60s. So I mean, and that 7,000 would flux into at least another 7,000, and plus all the people that have passed through it. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of people who've been out there. But at one time, there's always at least 7,000 people out there in the camps. So this eviction is no small deal. To put that into some kind of perspective, the town that I live in, Bryan, Ohio, is roughly 10,000 people. So we're talking just a few more thousand people. This is more than a village. This is a town that, with the right amount of money in it, a community that could be even incorporated as a city that has to be moved. So that's what we're talking about here. And now that we've covered the evictions, I'd like to move on and talk a little bit about some of the questions that I'm often asked, and kind of attempt to cover some of the misconceptions that I hear about, which is difficult because a lot of this isn't black and white. I'd like to begin with the land. Let's talk about the land first. Is the drill pad in the pipeline, is that on the reservation? People are always asking about the camps. Is that camp on the reservation? The current reservation, is it the old reservation? What is it? The answer is yes and no. And I really can't get into this without at least a bit of a history lesson here, and I want to be brief and very condensed. And I'm sorry for making it very trivial. This is going to be much more in depth on my upcoming documentary. I don't want to lose your interest, so here goes. First of all, into the 1800s, Manifest Destiny and the genocide against the Native Americans was already very much underway. And if you do not believe that fact, if you don't believe the fact of the genocide versus the Native Americans, giving them blankets with smallpox and all that, you might as well shut off this video right now, because the rest of this video and facts aren't going to make any sense to you, and you're loco in the cabeza. In 1851, the first Treaty of Laramie was signed, and this is a treaty that gave the Native Americans a large chunks of North Dakota, South Dakota, and other lands, including the Black Hills, which were not states yet. Problems quickly arose. It was almost as if the Treaty of 1851 was never signed. Settlers continued to go through the reservation lands. The war bands continued to war, the tribe versus tribe, and both of these were blatant disregards of the treaty. But there's plenty of evidence that the United States government never intended to honor this treaty in the first place. It was just a means to pacify the Native Americans. To break it down, the United States government never stopped completely moving west. They were completely moving west the whole time. They had never had any intention to stop. And in 1861, at the headwaters of the Missouri, gold was discovered. And this put even more immense pressure from settlers and government and the robber barons to disregard the treaty that was made in the first place. And this brings us to the second Treaty of Fort Laramie of 1868. At this time, Native Americans were more united than ever before. Not to say they were all thinking the same, because peoples aren't all united at all times. And if you think that, that's racist thinking, and I don't like that. They're more combined than ever before, and they realize that they're outgunned. They realize that they're outmanned. And they realize that the Europeans are just going to keep coming and coming and coming. And so they are making a true effort to stick together. And at this time, they also have settlers already settling on the original reservation, and just it's a big mess. Anyway, the Treaty of 1868 takes away much of the land that was originally given to the Sioux illegally, and the gold claims where the gold is found has been taken away, but the Black Hills are still a part of it. and the tribes go on and they fight for what they have left. In 1874, General George Custer leads his men, followed by a regiment of miners, which is often left out of history, but is in the history books, usually left out, to the Black Hills. He slaughters a bunch of Indians, and the miners find gold in Black Hills, which had been told to them that was there. Within a year, the word gets out across the United States to the eastern side, and a full-on gold rush is on to the Black Hills and the reservation. In 1876, General George Custer attacks what he thinks to be a small band of Native Americans, which is larger than what he suspects. This is the Battle of Little Bighorn. These are Native Americans who, under Crazy Horse, who are gathering to protect what's left of the reservation. In 1877, the Black Hills were illegally taken without any regard for any kind of treaty or whatever by the United States government, just for gold, for greed. In 1889, the federal government once again decided to change boundaries and divided the once great decided to divide the once great reservation, one giant reservation, into 5 different reservations, and within these became parts of the United States for the settlers, for the gold rush, for settlement. So you tell me, whose land is whose and what land is what. It's very difficult to decide. As of present day, the border is the Cannonball River. So Oceti Sakowin would not be on federal ground. Would be on federal ground, which is now Army Corps land. But legally, according to treaty, according to the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1876, that the United States broke illegally without any provocation. That is their land. And even according to this later treaty, when they broke it down into five separate lands, they gave hunting access and other things to the Sioux. So that land is legally allowed to be hunted present day, even after their illegal occupation of it. So wouldn't you say that hunting for justice is okay? No, but I made a little mistake and I have to correct it. I meant to say the Treaty of 1868 just a second ago, not the Treaty of 1876. There was no Treaty of 1876. In 1980, the United States Supreme Court, talking about the breaking of the Treaty of 1868, they say this. This is the United States Supreme Court. A more ripe and rank case of dishonorable dealings will never, in all probability, be found in our history. That's the United States Supreme Court saying that. So what are we doing to them now? I wanted to get to a few more of your questions tonight, but because of my stuttering and the fact that I got some more crap to do and I still have to edit, I'm gonna just stop this here. I do have a documentary coming out. I'm gonna stop guessing and telling people when it's coming out because so much is happening and events unfold pretty fast. And I also have some crap in my personal life that I have to deal with. But I am working on it, and when it comes out, I hope you're happy with it. And keep fighting the good fight. To my brothers and sisters in Standing Rock that are still out there, man, it's rough. It's rough being evicted. I know you guys still want to fight, and I guess we just have to find a different way to do that now. I love you guys. Aho.